Chapter 1. The curse. The crowd was electric. Thousands of fans packed the stadium, the air humming with excitement as Fall Out Boy took the stage. The lights were bright, the music loud, and the energy contagious. Patrick Stump's voice echoed through the arena, and the band gave it everything they had. But hidden in the shadows, far away from the lights and cheers, a figure watched. Cloaked in shimmering black, Queen Lust smiled darkly. Her sharp eyes glowed red as she studied the band, her fingers twitching with anticipation. She had waited centuries for this moment. As the concert reached its climax, the Queen whispered a dark incantation, raising her hands high. From her fingertips, a thick, swelling smoke began to rise, invisible to the crowd but moving swiftly through the venue. It slithered like a serpent, undetected by the screaming fans, until it reached the stage. Within seconds, the smoke surrounded the band. Patrick's voice wavered as he noticed it first, glancing at Pete Wentz, who was still lost in the music. But before anyone could react, the smoke thickened, swelling faster, wrapping around the band members like vines. The crowd continued cheering, unaware of the danger. One by one, the band members stumbled. Pete dropped his bass, Joe Trommon fell to his knees, and Andy Hurley collapsed over his drum set. Patrick was the last to fall, his vision blurring as the smoke enveloped him. And then, everything went black. When the band awoke, the world had changed. Patrick opened his eyes slowly, his head pounding. The familiar lights of the stage were gone, replaced by a soft, eerie glow filtering through towering, twisted trees. He sat up, heart racing, trying to get his bearings. "Guys," his voice echoed through the thick forest. "Pete? Joe?" Andy from nearby. Pete groaned, sitting up with a hand on his head. What the hell just happened? Joe was already standing, scanning their surroundings with wide eyes. "This isn't the stadium." Patrick stumbled to his feet. "No kidding. Where are we?" They were in the middle of a forest, but nothing about it was normal. The trees were dark, their branches curling unnaturally toward the sky, as if they were alive and watching. The air felt thick, heavy with magic. And he stood up, dusting himself off. "I don't like this." Before anyone could say another word, a sound broke through the silence, a soft giggle, like a child playing in the woods. They all turned, squinting into the darkness. From behind a tree stepped a small figure, at first barely visible. It was a bunny, its fur a vibrant mix of blue and white, glowing faintly in the moonlight. But this was no ordinary rabbit. Its eyes gleamed with intelligence, and as it moved closer, it began to change. The bunny stood on its hind legs, its body stretching and twisting. In a matter of seconds, it transformed into a young girl, no older than 13, with bunny ears poking through her white and blue hair. Her eyes shimmered like the night sky. Who are you?" Patrick asked, taking a cautious step back. The girl smiled, her teeth sharp but her expression kind. "My name is Luna. You've been cursed." Pete raised an eyebrow. "Cursed? By who?" "By Queen Lust," Luna said, her voice soft but serious. "She's a powerful sorceress who wants to trap you here forever. She used the smoke to bring you into her world. And now, you can't leave." The band exchanged nervous glances. "Is there a way out?" Joe asked. Luna's smile faded, and she sighed. "There might be. But it won't be easy. Lust magic is strong, and this forest, it's her domain. She'll send creatures after you. Dark creatures. If you want to survive, you'll need my help." Patrick took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Okay. So what do we do?" Luna's eyes sparkled with determination. "Follow me. There's a safe place deeper in the forest, but we have to move fast. Lust already knows you've woken up." Without waiting for a reply, Luna darted into the trees, her small figure barely visible in the shadows. The band hesitated for only a moment before following her into the dark, twisted forest, unaware of the dangers lurking just ahead. The curse had begun. Chapter 2. The journey begins. The forest was alive, but not in the way the band was used to. Every tree seemed to have a pulse, every branch and leaf whispering secrets they couldn't understand. The shadows moved unnaturally, and the air carried a faint, unsettling hum. Patrick, Pete, Joe, and Andy followed Luna as quickly as they could, their footsteps muffled by the thick, soft moss covering the ground. Luna, in her part human, part bunny form, glided effortless through the dark forest. Her blue and white hair shimmered faintly in the dim light, making her easy to spot as they hurried after her. "How far is it?" Pete asked, his voice strained from trying to keep up. "Not too far," Luna said over her shoulder. "But we have to be quick. The longer we're out here, the more dangerous it gets," and he glanced around, uneasy. Dangerous how? Luna didn't answer right away. Instead, she picked up her pace, her bunny ears twitching. "You'll see. But we'll be safe once we reach my home. My friends will protect us." Patrick looked at the others, exchanging worried glances, but they had no choice but to trust Luna. She seemed like their only hope of figuring out what had happened to them. After what felt like hours of walking, the dark forest suddenly opened up into a small, hidden clearing. In the center stood a quaint little house made entirely of woven branches, leaves, and glowing flowers. It looked as if it had been built by the forest itself, blending perfectly into its surroundings. Luna led them to the front of the house and pushed open the door. "Come inside. You'll be safe here." As they stepped in, the band was greeted by an astonishing sight. The interior of the house was warm and cozy, filled with soft, glowing light. But what caught their attention most were the inhabitants, dozens of small, blue and white bunnies, all hopping around, chattering quietly to each other. Some of them transformed into bunny human forms like Luna, waving at the band members with friendly smiles. "Whoa," Joe muttered, looking around. "This is unexpected," Luna giggled. "These are my friends. They're the forest bunnies. We've lived here for as long as I can remember, keeping to ourselves and staying out of Queen Lust's way." One of the bunnies, a small one with particularly bright blue fur, hopped up to Luna and transformed into a young bunny girl about her age. "Luna. Who are these people?" "They're humans," Luna said softly. "Queen Lust cursed them, but I'm going to help them break the spell," the other bunnies murmured among themselves, clearly nervous at the mention of Queen Lust. A taller bunny boy stepped forward. "You shouldn't be involved, Luna. Lust's magic is too strong. I have to help them," Luna said firmly. "They don't belong here." Patrick cleared his throat. "We appreciate the help. Really. But how do we break this curse?" Luna glanced at the other bunnies before turning back to the band. "There's an ancient artifact hidden deep in the forest. It's called the Moonstone. It's the only thing powerful enough to counter Lust's magic. But finding it will be dangerous. Queen Lust controls the forest, and she won't let us get far without a fight." Pete crossed his arms, determined. "We've faced tough crowds before. We can handle it." But even as he spoke, a cold wind swept through the house, rattling the walls. The bunnies fell silent, their eyes wide with fear. Far away, in her towering, shadowy castle, Queen Lust sat on her dark throne, watching everything through her crystal globe. Her long black nails traced the surface of the globe as it shimmered, showing Luna and the band inside the bunny house. "So, the little one thinks she can help them," Lust whispered to herself, a wicked smile curling on her lips. "How amusing." She stood, her black gown flowing behind her like a shadow, and moved closer to the globe. "I won't let them get far," she hissed. "This is my world, and they'll never leave." With a wave of her hand, Lust summoned her creatures from the deepest parts of the forest, twisted beings made of darkness, their glowing red eyes burning with hunger. They slithered and crept, ready to hunt, obeying her silent command to find the band and Luna. Lust watched with delight as the creatures began their journey through the forest, heading straight for the bunny's hidden home. "Run all you want, little heroes," she murmured. "But you'll never escape my grasp." Back in the house, Luna felt a sudden chill and looked toward the window. She could feel the darkness stirring. Queen Lust had already begun her next move. "We don't have much time," Luna said, her voice trembling. "She's coming." Patrick clenched his fists, standing tall. "Then we fight," Luna nodded. "We'll fight. But first, we have to find the Moonstone. It's our only chance." The bunnies gathered around, offering their support, and together, the band and Luna prepared for the dangerous journey ahead. The forest was vast, and Lust's power was overwhelming, But with courage and a little magic on their side, the journey to break the curse had officially begun. Chapter 3. The forest loses color. The next morning, the eerie calm of the forest seemed almost too still. Fallout Boy and Luna had barely rested, their minds occupied by the threat of Queen Lust and the looming task of finding the Moonstone. As they prepared to leave Luna's home, something strange caught Luna's eye. Rosie, she called softly, noticing a small bunny huddled in a corner, her fur a pale, dull shade of grey instead of its usual bright pink. Rosie was one of the youngest bunnies in Luna's community, always full of energy and joy. But now, she looked fragile, drained, as if the life had been sucked out of her. Luna rushed over, kneeling beside her. "Rosie, what happened?" The tiny bunny lifted her head weakly, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know. I woke up, and my color was gone. I feel so weak." Luna's heart raced as she glanced at the other bunnies gathered around. They too looked different, faded, their vibrant fur washed out to shades of grey and white. Even her glowing blue and white home, once alive with color and warmth, seemed dull. "Something's wrong," Luna murmured, standing up and turning to the band. "Queen Lust, she's draining the magic from the forest. This has to be her doing." Joe frowned, looking at the bunnies. "She's taking their color away? But why? She wants to weaken us," Luna explained, panic rising in her voice. "Without color, we lose our magic, our power. She's trying to stop us before we even start our journey," and he shook his head in disbelief. "How do we stop this?" Luna clenched her fists, fighting back tears. "We have to find the Moonstone. It's the only thing that can bring their magic back." Patrick stepped forward, placing a hand on Luna's shoulder. "We'll fix this, Luna. You're not alone." Just as Luna nodded, a faint rustling sound came from outside the house. They all froze, instinctively on alert. The band and the bunnies exchanged nervous glances. Was it one of Lust's creatures? Luna cautiously opened the door and peered into the clearing. At first, she saw nothing but shadows and trees. But then, from the edge of the woods, a figure slowly emerged. It was small, dressed in a tattered, dark hooded cloak, with bunny ears just visible underneath the hood. "Who's there?" Luna called out, her voice steady but cautious. The figure didn't answer at first. Instead, it hesitated, then slowly lifted its hood. Underneath was another bunny similar to Luna, but entirely drained of color. Her fur, which must have once been a bright, vibrant hue, was now a pale, sickly gray, her eyes dull and lifeless. She looked like one of the bunnies from Luna's community, but there was something different about her. "I'm not here to harm you," the bunny said, her voice soft but tired. I was once like you. But I was cursed. Just like them." Luna's breath caught in her throat as she stepped closer, recognizing the girl. Elara the bunny nodded slowly. "Yes, it's me." Elara had been one of the older, more skilled bunnies in Luna's village, known for her strength and courage. But she had disappeared months ago, and everyone had assumed she'd been taken by Lust's magic. Now, seeing her like this, so drained and hollow, Luna felt a pang of sadness. "You survived?" Luna asked, her voice filled with disbelief. "How?" Elara pulled her hood tighter around her shoulders. "Barely. I was the first one Queen Lust cursed. She drained my color, my magic, but I managed to escape before she could finish the spell. I've been hiding in the forest ever since. But I'm too weak to fight her alone." Pete stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "Why didn't you come back to the village?" Elara shook her head. "I didn't want them to see me like this. I've been trying to find a way to reverse the curse, but every day, I lose a little more strength." Luna's heart ached for her friend. "You should have told us. We would have helped you." Elara gave a small, sad smile. "I didn't think there was any hope. But now that you're here," she glanced at the band, then back at Luna. "Maybe together, we can stop her." Patrick looked at Luna, determination in his eyes. "Then you're coming with us. We need all the help we can get." Elara hesitated, looking down at her faded hands. "I don't know how much help I'll be, but I'll try. I know the forest well. I can guide you to the Moonstone." Luna stepped closer to her friend, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We'll get your color back, Elara. We'll fix this." Elara nodded, though uncertainty still clouded her eyes. Then let's go. Lust won't wait for us to be ready. Together, Fallout Boy, Luna, and Elara gathered what they could and set off deeper into the forest. As they walked, the once vibrant world around them continued to lose its color. The leaves, the flowers, even the sky seemed to dim as if Lust's curse was spreading faster and faster. Luna couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility pressing on her. She had to save her friends, her village, and now Elara, too. And with Lust watching their every move from her distant castle, the danger grew with every step. As they ventured deeper into the dark, colorless forest, the sense of urgency gnawed at them. But one thing was clear, the journey to find the Moonstone had truly begun, and they couldn't afford to fail. Queen Lust's grip on the forest was tightening, and soon, there might not be any magic left to save Chapter 4. Something strange as they ventured deeper into the forest, the air around them began to change. The once familiar trees twisted unnaturally, their branches curling like claws, and the ground seemed to shift beneath their feet, as though the very forest itself was alive and intent on keeping them trapped. "This place is getting creepier by the second," Andy muttered, glancing uneasily at the strange, swelling mist that had begun to fill the gaps between the trees. Patrick nodded, gripping Luna's arm as they carefully navigated the uneven ground. "Luna, is the forest supposed to do this?" "No," Luna replied, her eyes darting around. "Something's wrong. Queen Lust is trying to confuse us, to separate us." Almost as if on cue, the ground beneath them rumbled, and 3 massive holes opened up in front of them. Before anyone could react, the earth gave way, and everyone tumbled into different chasms, vanishing from each other's sight. Pete and Elara landed hard, the air knocked from his lungs as he hit the cold, damp floor of the hole. He groaned, pushing himself to his feet and rubbing the back of his head. "Ugh, is everyone okay?" he called out. A voice answered him from the shadows. "I'm here." Pete turned to see Elara stepping out of the darkness, her once grey fur now appearing even paler in the dim light. Her expression was tense, and she held her hood close around her as she scanned their new surroundings. "Well, it looks like it's just you and me," Pete said, forcing a grin despite the eerie quiet of the place. "Any idea where we are?" Elara shook her head. "No. But Queen Lust must be doing this. She's twisting the forest to separate us, to weaken us." Pete nodded, looking around. They seemed to be in some kind of underground tunnel, its walls made of dark stone, dripping with water. He glanced at Elara, noticing her quiet strength despite everything she had gone through. "We'll find the others. You're tougher than you look, Elara." Elara gave him a small, tired smile. "I've had to be." Together, they began walking through the tunnel, hoping it would lead them back to the surface and the rest of their group. Luna and Patrick. Luna landed gracefully beside Patrick, who managed to roll and avoid the worst of the fall. They had fallen into a smaller, more confined space, with thick roots tangling through the walls like veins. "You okay?" Patrick asked, helping Luna to her feet. "I'm fine," Luna replied, her bunny ears twitching nervously. "But I can't feel the others." "We're really separated." Patrick looked around, trying to hide his anxiety. "We need to find a way out and regroup." "Lust won't make this easy," Luna nodded, her blue and white hair glowing faintly in the darkness. "We have to be careful. The deeper we go, the more dangerous it gets." "I can sense her magic. It's growing stronger." The two pressed on, the roots around them seeming to move as they walked, as though the forest itself was shifting to keep them lost. Every step they took felt like a gamble, but Patrick kept his faith in Luna's instincts. "We'll get out of this," he said, more to reassure himself than her. Luna gave him a grateful glance, her confidence flickering despite the situation. "I know we will." Joe and Andy. Meanwhile, Joe and Andy had fallen into a vast, open cavern lit by a strange green glow. They groaned as they picked themselves up, dusting off dirt and leaves. "This is just getting weirder by the second," Joe grumbled, looking around. "Where the heck are we?" Andy shrugged, but then his eyes widened as something caught his attention. "Up, Joe, look over there." In the corner of the cavern, a small figure was crouched, glowing faintly with a soft, green light. It was a bunny girl, similar in age to Luna, but her fur was a bright, almost luminescent green. She wore a tattered cloak, and her eyes shimmered with curiosity and caution. Joe stepped forward, though cautiously. "Hey, who are you?" The green bunny girl looked up, her expression wary but not unfriendly. "I'm Ivy," she said softly, her voice echoing slightly in the cavern. "I've been hiding here ever since Queen Lust began spreading her curse. You're like Luna," Andy said, noticing the similarity. "Are you from her village?" Ivy shook her head. "No, but I know her. We're both from different parts of the forest. I've been wandering alone for a long time, trying to escape Lust's magic." Joe crossed his arms. "Why didn't you leave the forest?" Ivy's ears drooped slightly. "I tried. But Lust's magic is everywhere now. It's spreading faster than we can stop it. And now, I think I'm trapped here." And he exchanged a glance with Joe. "Well, you're not alone anymore. We're trying to stop Queen Lust, too. Come with us." Ivy hesitated for a moment but then nodded, her eyes full of determination. "I'll help you. But we need to be careful. Lust's creatures will be after us." Joe grinned. "Don't worry. We're good at dodging trouble." As the three of them started moving through the cavern, the green glow intensified, guiding them toward what they hoped would be an exit. But deep in the back of their minds, they all knew that Queen Lust's influence was growing stronger with each passing minute. Back at Lust's castle in her towering, shadowy castle, Queen Lust stood before her crystal globe, watching the separated groups as they wandered deeper into the forest's twisted paths. Her lips curled into a cruel smile as she saw her plan unfolding. "They're playing right into my hands," Lust whispered, her voice dripping with malice. "Let them wander. The deeper they go, the harder it will be to escape." With a wave of her hand, dark tendrils of magic slithered from her fingers and into the globe, sending her twisted creatures to hunt them down. Soon, Lust whispered to herself, they'll be lost forever. Chapter 5. The Big Challenge. The forest's twisted magic was relentless. As the groups wandered further from one another, they found themselves faced with strange, familiar figures from a world they never expected. Willy Wonka's golden ticket winners had somehow become entangled in Queen Lust's twisted game. Joe, Andy, Ivy, and Mike V. Joe and Andy had barely begun to make sense of the eerie green glow surrounding them when they heard footsteps quick and light approaching. Ivy tensed, her green fur standing on end as she raised her head. "Someone's coming," she whispered, her voice trembling. From the shadows of the cavern, a boy emerged, his face unmistakable. It was Mike V, dressed just as he had been when they last saw him on their television screens. But something was different. He was older, and a strange energy seemed to pulse around him, almost like static electricity. Well, if it isn't Mike V, Joe muttered in disbelief, recognizing the boy instantly. Mike raised an eyebrow, crossing his arms. "You guys are really out of your depth, aren't you? Wandering around this place like lost puppies," and he frowned. "What are you doing here? How did you even get here?" Mike smirked, shrugging. "Queen Lust got me. Pulled me into her little game after I left the chocolate factory. Said she needed someone resourceful to help her spread her magic through the forest. But I'm not interested in helping her, I'm interested in getting out." Ivy narrowed her eyes, unconvinced. "And why should we trust you?" Mike leaned against the cavern wall, the green light casting strange shadows across his face. "You don't have to trust me. But you'll need me if you want to survive this place. I've been here longer than you have." Joe and Andy exchanged glances before Joe sighed. "Well, if you can help us get out of here, we're listening. But don't try anything funny." Mike grinned. "Wouldn't dream of it." Together, they ventured further into the cavern, aware that this might just be the start of a much bigger challenge than they had anticipated. Pete, Elara, and Augustus Gloop. Pete and Elara had barely made it out of the tunnel they had fallen into when they heard loud, heavy footsteps behind them. Turning quickly, they both froze in place as a massive figure stepped into view. Augustus Gloop. He was as large and intimidating as ever, his hands clutching a half-eaten chocolate bar as he stumbled toward them. His clothes were smeared with remnants of candy, and his face was twisted in a look of confusion. "Augustus?" Pete asked, bewildered. "What are you doing here?" Augustus stopped in front of them, panting heavily. I was in the chocolate factory, and then everything went black. Now I'm here. Where is this place?" I want to go home, Elara frowned, stepping forward. Queen Lust must have pulled him in, like she did to us. Pete ran a hand through his hair. Great. As if things weren't complicated enough already, Augustus groaned, his hands trembling. I don't like it here. It's dark, and the food is terrible. Can't we just leave? Elara glanced at Pete, her voice low. We'll need to be careful with him. He's not going to be much help in this condition. Pete sighed, nodding. Yeah, but we can't leave him behind. Lust might be using him somehow. Suddenly, the ground beneath them rumbled again, and strange, twisted vines began slithering up from the dirt. Pete cursed under his breath. Looks like we don't have a choice. Let's move. With Augustus lumbering behind them, Pete and Elara fought their way through the vines, determined to reach safety. But in the back of their minds, they knew this was only a test. Queen Lust was watching, and the real challenge was still to come. Patrick, Luna, Violet Beauregard, and Veruca saw Patrick and Luna had been walking through the maze of roots and vines when they heard voices, familiar, bickering voices. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with two figures they never expected to see again. Violet Beauregard and Veruca Salt. Violet, her face as stern and competitive as ever, stood with her arms crossed, looking annoyed. Veruca, on the other hand, appeared just as spoiled and irritable as she had been back at the factory, her fancy clothes standing out starkly against the dreary forest surroundings. Patrick blinked in shock. Wait, what? How are you two here? Veruca scoffed, rolling her eyes. Ugh, if I knew that, don't you think I'd be out of here by now? I don't belong in this disgusting forest. I demand to speak to whoever's in charge. Violet smirked, chewing gum loudly as she glanced at Veruca. Queen Lust got us, genius. Now we're stuck here like the rest of you. Luna stepped forward, her ears twitching in agitation. Queen Lust pulled you into her curse, too? Why? Violet shrugged, blowing a bubble with her gum. Don't know, don't care. I'm just trying to find a way out of here before Veruca gets on my nerves even more. Patrick, still trying to process the surreal encounter, shook his head. Great. So we're all stuck here together, Veruca huffed, stomping her foot. I refuse to be stuck here. I'm Veruca Salt. I get what I want, and I want to get out of here now. Luna, her patience wearing thin, stepped closer to Veruca, her voice steady but firm. Listen, we're all in the same mess. If we work together, we might be able to escape Lust's magic. But if you keep whining, you're only going to make it harder. Veruca opened her mouth to protest, but before she could speak, the ground rumbled, and a dark mist began to swirl around them. Luna's eyes widened. This is it. She's sending another challenge. Patrick tightened his grip on the small dagger he had found earlier, standing protectively beside Luna. We'll fight through this. No matter what. The four of them braced themselves as the forest seemed to come alive around them, the twisted vines and roots shifting, creating a maze that was almost impossible to navigate. But Luna knew they had no choice. They had to push forward, find the others, and stop Queen Lust before her magic consumed the entire forest. Back at Lust's castle, Queen Lust watched the chaos unfold through her crystal globe, a twisted smile curling on her lips. She could see each group struggling in their own way, lost in the forest's ever-shifting maze. Let them play their little game, she whispered to herself, her voice echoing in the darkened chamber. They'll never make it out alive. With a flick of her hand, she sent more of her dark magic into the forest, weaving new obstacles and traps for them. Lust was determined to keep them separated, weak, and distracted, knowing that the deeper they ventured, the harder it would be for them to escape her clutches. And as the twisted forest continued to grow, she prepared her final challenge, the one that would ensure none of them would ever leave alive. Chapter 6. The Wrath of Time. Queen Lust's crystal globe shimmered with dark magic as she watched her traps begin to unfold, a wicked smile spreading across her face. She could sense the panic and confusion gripping her prey as each group faced their deadly challenge. This was her grand design, a trap that would crush their hope and end their quest once and for all. Pete, Augustus, and Elara. The pipes. Pete and Augustus barely had time to react as the ground beneath them shifted and two massive pipes suddenly appeared, their wide openings sucking in air with a loud whoosh. Before either of them could move, Pete was yanked off his feet, disappearing into one of the pipes. Augustus, who had been struggling to keep up with them, was pulled into the second pipe with a yelp, chocolate still smudged on his face. Elara, wide-eyed and panicked, watched in horror as both of them vanished into the twisting metal tubes. The pipes roared to life, pulling Pete and Augustus deeper into the twisted bowels of the trap. The walls around them hummed ominously, and Elara knew she had only moments to act. She sprinted toward the pipes, trying to keep her fear at bay. Her heart pounded in her chest as she examined the machinery, searching desperately for a way to reverse the suction. There were no obvious levers or buttons, just the constant, deafening roar of the pipes. "I need to get them out," Elara muttered to herself, her voice shaky. "Think, Elara, think." She crouched down, inspecting the base of the pipes, her fingers searching for any hidden mechanism. Suddenly, she heard a faint voice echoing through the metal. "Elara." Help, it was Pete, his voice muffled but urgent. "We're trapped, Andy, Joe, Mike, and Ivy." The electrical trap. Meanwhile, Andy, Joe, and Mike found themselves in an enclosed metal room, the walls humming with dangerous energy. Bright blue sparks crackled across the surface, and they quickly realized they were inside some kind of electrical trap. "This is bad," Joe muttered, his eyes wide as he took in the sparking wires around them. "Really bad." Mike, ever the strategist, was already scanning the room for an escape route. "If we touch anything, we're fried," he said through gritted teeth. "But there has to be a way out. Lust wouldn't set this trap if it couldn't be beaten." And he glanced around nervously, his mind racing. Maybe we can short-circuit it, not without getting zapped ourselves," Joe replied, stepping back from a particularly dangerous-looking coil of electricity. Ivy, her eyes glowing faintly with green energy, stepped forward. "Wait. I can see the energy lines. There's a control system, but it's outside the room. If I focus, I might be able to close a trap before it kills you." Her voice was uncertain, but there was a flicker of hope. Joe and Andy exchanged glances, both realizing that Ivy was their only chance. "Do it," Mike urged. "Whatever you have to do, just do it fast." Ivy closed her eyes, focusing on the strange green glow inside her mind. She could sense the pulse of electricity surging through the room, each current a potential death sentence for the others. Sweat dripped down her forehead as she concentrated harder, trying to pinpoint the source of the trap's power. Time was running out. Patrick, Violet, Veruca, and Luna, the Thorn Room. Patrick, Violet, and Veruca had fallen through a hidden hole in the forest floor, landing in a pitch-black chamber that smelled of earth and danger. As they scrambled to their feet, the walls around them began to move, slowly revealing sharp thorns that jutted out from the stone. The room began to shrink, inching closer and closer, the thorns ready to pierce them from every direction. Violet groaned in frustration, glancing at Veruca, who was on the verge of panic. "This is insane," she snapped. "What is this place?" Veruca whimpered, clutching her arms as the walls moved closer. "I don't care. Get us out of here now." Patrick tried to calm them both, though his own heart was racing. "Stay calm, okay? There has to be a way out." Up above, Luna was desperately trying to find a way to stop the trap. The hole they had fallen through was now sealed, and the controls for the room seemed to be locked in some intricate magic mechanism that she didn't recognize. Her powers were gone, stripped away by Lust's dark magic. For the first time, Luna felt powerless. Come on, she whispered frantically, her fingers tracing the edges of the trap's mechanism. Without her powers, she had no way to influence the room below. "I need to stop this. They're going to die." Luna's heart pounded in her chest as the sounds of the room below grew louder, the thorns scraping against the stone as they moved closer to Patrick, Violet, and Veruca. She could hear Veruca's terrified cries and Patrick's frantic voice trying to keep everyone calm. "Luna!" Patrick shouted up, his voice echoing. "Whatever you're doing, do it fast." Queen Lust's castle. Back at her castle, Queen Lust watched with glee as her traps closed in on each group. Her dark magic pulsed through the forest, manipulating the very air they breathed. Time was running out for the band members, the cursed bunnies, and the golden ticket winners. "It's only a matter of time before they fall," Lust whispered to herself, her fingers tracing the edge of her crystal globe. She could see every detail of their desperate struggle, and she reveled in their helplessness. "They can try all they want," she hissed, "but none of them will escape." Elara, Ivy, and Luna. The fight to save them. Elara's hand shook as she finally found the mechanism she was searching for. With a deep breath, she pulled the lever, hoping it would reverse the flow of the pipes. The metal creaked, and for a moment, nothing happened. But then Pete's voice echoed again, closer this time, and moments later, he was ejected from the pipe with a loud thud, landing next to her. "Thanks," Pete gasped, his voice weak. "Now, get Augustus out of there." Elara gritted her teeth and focused on the second pipe, pulling the lever with all her strength. With another rumble, Augustus was spat out, coughing and groaning. "I hate pipes," he muttered. Meanwhile, in the electrical trap, Ivy's vision pulsed with green energy as she located the control system outside the room. With a final, desperate push of her mind, she sent a surge of magic to the controls. The sparks inside the room sputtered, and the trap deactivated just as the walls started to close in. "You did it," Joe shouted, his voice filled with relief. Ivy, exhausted but smiling faintly, nodded. "We're not out of this yet." Above the throne room, Luna's fingers trembled as she continued to search for a way to stop the walls. Without her magic, everything felt hopeless. But then she saw it. A faint, glowing symbol hidden among the vines. It was Lust's curse, embedded into the mechanism itself. With newfound determination, Luna pressed her hands against the symbol. Her powers might have been gone, but she could still sense the energy within it. She focused, pushing all her will into the symbol, trying to break Lust's hold. As the walls slowed to a stop, Luna collapsed in relief. She had saved them, but just barely. The aftermath. One by one, the groups regrouped, exhausted but alive. They had barely survived Queen Lust's wrath, and though they had managed to escape her traps, they knew that the worst was still to come. Lust's power was growing stronger, and with each passing moment, time was running out. Luna looked at the others, her heart heavy. "We're not done yet. Lust won't stop until she's destroyed us all." Pete, bruised but determined, stood tall. "Then we don't stop either. We're getting out of here and we're taking Lust down with us." And so, the journey continued, but now they knew just how deadly their foe truly was. Chapter 7, The Mystic Queen. After barely escaping Queen Lust's deadly traps, the group barely had time to catch their breath when the ground beneath them began to tremble. A swirling portal, glowing with a soft, iridescent light, appeared beneath Fallout Boy. Before anyone could react, Pete, Patrick, Joe, and Andy were pulled into the swirling vortex, vanishing from sight. "Luna!" Patrick called out, his voice echoing as the band was swallowed up by the portal. Luna, Ivy, and Elara stared at the fading portal in shock. "Where did they go?" Elara gasped, her eyes wide with fear. Luna, whose powers were still limited after Lust's curse, stepped forward, her face filled with determination. "I know where they've gone," she said quietly. "It's the Mystic Realm, the heart of the bunny forest." "The Mystic Realm?" Ivy asked, confused. "What is that?" Luna turned to the group, her eyes glowing faintly. "It's where the queen resides. The queen of my world, the rainbow bunny. She must have sensed our struggle and is calling them to her." The Mystic Realm. Fallout Boy landed softly on a patch of glowing grass, the world around them bathed in hues of soft blues, purples, and pinks. They were surrounded by trees made of crystal, their branches reflecting the light of a sky that shimmered with rainbow-colored clouds. The air itself seemed to hum with magic. "Where are we?" Joe muttered, looking around in awe. Patrick stood up, brushing himself off. This place is beautiful." Suddenly, the ground in front of them rippled like water, and from the center of the clearing, a radiant figure emerged. She was a tall, elegant bunny with fur that shimmered in every color of the rainbow. Her large, expressive eyes gleamed with wisdom, and she wore a royal gown made of silken fabric that seemed to float around her. A delicate crown of crystals rested on her head. "Welcome to the Mystic Realm," the queen said, her voice soft but powerful. "I am Queen Seraphina, guardian of the bunny forest and protector of all who dwell here." The band members stared in awe as the queen approached them. Her presence radiated warmth and kindness, yet they could feel the immense power she held within her. You fought bravely against Queen Lust's curse, Seraphina continued, her eyes softening. But the danger is far from over. I have summoned you here because you will need my help if you are to stand a chance against her dark magic. Pete stepped forward, his gaze steady. We'll do whatever it takes. We just want to stop her. Queen Seraphina nodded, a smile tugging at her lips. Your courage is admirable. But you cannot face Lust's wrath alone. I will share my energy with you, giving you the strength to continue your journey. She raised her hands, and a radiant light burst from her body, enveloping the band. Each member felt a surge of energy flow through them, filling them with warmth and strength. The magic shimmered in rainbow colors, wrapping around them like a protective shield. You now carry a piece of my power, Seraphina said softly. It will protect you from Lust's dark magic for a time, but you must be wise and use it carefully. As the light faded, Luna, Ivy, and Elara suddenly appeared in the clearing, having been drawn to the mystic realm by Seraphina's magic. Luna, Patrick called, rushing over to her. Luna, her eyes bright, smiled widely at the sight of her friends. You made it, she said, relief flooding her voice. And you've met Queen Seraphina. The queen stepped forward, her gaze warm as she looked at Luna, Ivy, and Elara. You've all done well to protect each other and fight against Lust's traps. I am proud of you. Ivy, still a bit in awe of the queen's presence, bowed her head. Thank you, your majesty. Elara, feeling a surge of confidence from the queen's praise, added, we're not giving up. No matter what Lust throws at us. Seraphina smiled. That is the spirit you must carry with you. But be warned, Lust is growing more powerful with each passing moment. You will face greater challenges ahead. Luna stepped forward, her voice steady. With your power, we stand a better chance. Thank you for helping us, Queen Seraphina. The queen nodded. It is my duty to protect my forest and all who dwell within it. You are no longer alone in this fight. As Seraphina's words filled the air, the group felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced Lust's wrath before and survived, but now they had the blessing of the Mystic Queen, and with that, they were ready to continue their journey. We will defeat Lust, Pete declared, his voice strong. And we'll bring color back to your world, Patrick added, looking at Luna, Ivy, and Elara. Queen Seraphina's eyes sparkled as she looked upon them. Go now, and remember you are stronger together. Trust in each other, and you will prevail. With a final, warm smile, the queen waved her hand, and a new portal opened before them, leading back to the forest. Armed with the Mystic Queen's power and their newfound courage, the group stepped through the portal, ready to face whatever came next. But deep within her dark castle, Queen Lust was watching, and she was preparing her next, most dangerous trap yet. Chapter 8. The Return to Earth. Queen Seraphina stood tall, her presence glowing like the dawn. In her hand, she held a shimmering, intricately designed key that sparkled with every color of the rainbow. This key will allow you to return to Earth, Luna, she explained, her voice gentle yet commanding. But remember, the journey ahead will require all of your strength and unity. Luna reached out, accepting the key with reverence. It felt warm in her hands, pulsing with the magic of the mystic realm. Thank you, your majesty, she said, her voice filled with gratitude. We won't forget the power you've given us. The other members of Fallout Boy stood nearby, their expressions a mixture of anticipation and sadness. They had grown close to Luna, Ivy, and Elara during their time in the bunny forest, and the thought of leaving this magical realm was bittersweet. Are you ready? Pete asked, glancing at the portal that shimmered behind them. Ready as we'll ever be, Patrick replied, determination shining in his eyes. As the band members stepped toward the portal, Luna felt a surge of emotion. She glanced back at Queen Seraphina, who offered a reassuring smile. You carry my magic with you now. It will guide and protect you. With one last look at the radiant queen, Fallout Boy stepped into the portal, their bodies enveloped by its vibrant light. The world around them twisted and blurred, and in an instant, they found themselves back on Earth. Earth. After the concert, they landed backstage at the venue where they had been scheduled to perform. The echoes of a cheering crowd faded into silence, and the lights dimmed, leaving them in the remnants of an now empty concert hall. The disappointment was palpable as they realized they had missed their performance. That was An interesting trip, Joe muttered, trying to lighten the mood. And he sighed, looking around at the empty seats. Guess we'll have to make it up to our fans next time. But deep down, they all knew that their experiences in the bunny forest had changed them. They had faced danger together, and that bond would last beyond this concert. A few weeks later, weeks passed, and the band focused on reconnecting with their fans and making new music. The colors and vitality of their hometown had returned, revitalized by the magic they had received from Queen Seraphina. The streets were alive with laughter and joy, a stark contrast to the shadow that had once loomed over them. One sunny afternoon, Luna, Ivy, and Elara gathered together in the mystic realm, feeling the magic of the forest pulse around them. They were about to make a life-altering decision. We've been given a chance to stay here, but I feel like we have to be with them, Luna said, glancing at her friends. Elara nodded. We've already helped so much, I want to see what happens next with them. Ivy smiled brightly. Let's do it. Let's become humans and join Fallout Boy. With a shared resolve, they approached Queen Seraphina once more. The queen welcomed them warmly. You wish to become human and join your friends on Earth? Yes, your majesty, Luna replied, clutching the magical key tightly. We want to experience life with them, Seraphina smiled, her eyes twinkling with kindness. Very well. You shall be granted the ability to walk among humans while still carrying the magic of the bunny forest within you. With a wave of her hand, a bright light enveloped the three friends, and they felt themselves transform. Their form shifted until they were no longer bunnies but three girls, radiant and full of life, yet still retaining the essence of their magical origins. Thank you, Queen Seraphina, they exclaimed in unison, feeling a rush of excitement at their new forms. Visiting Fallout Boy. As the girls stepped through the portal back to Earth, they found themselves in the familiar environment of the band's studio. The walls were adorned with posters, and the air was filled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee. Whoa, this place looks amazing, Ivy exclaimed, taking in the surroundings. Just then, the band members entered the room, their eyes lighting up at the sight of their friends. Luna, Ivy, Elara. They shouted in unison, rushing over to greet them. We missed you guys, Patrick said, enveloping Luna in a tight hug. It's good to be back, Luna replied, feeling a rush of warmth from the reunion. The three girls shared their story, explaining their decision to become human and join the band. The room buzzed with excitement as they spoke of their experiences in the mystic realm. I can't believe you all became humans, Pete laughed, grinning at the trio. You'll have to teach us about the bunny magic. I brought something for you, Luna said, reaching into her bag. She pulled out a beautifully crafted charm shaped like a bunny, adorned with sparkling gems that shimmered with the colors of the rainbow. This is a gift to remind you of the bunny forest and our adventures together. The band members stared in awe at the charm. It's beautiful, Luna Joe exclaimed, taking it into his hands. Thank you. It's a symbol of our bond and the magic we've shared, Luna explained. Whenever you look at it, remember that we'll always be connected. With laughter and joy, the group spent the day together, sharing stories, playing music, and celebrating their newfound friendship. The air was filled with laughter, and the magic of the bunny forest lingered in every corner. And as the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Luna, Ivy, and Elara knew they were exactly where they were meant to be, among friends, sharing adventures, and ready to face whatever came next. The journey was far from over, but together, they would overcome any challenge that lay ahead. To listen to more stories about Veruca Salt, visit ellisland890.com. Read and check out our entire library unlimited. No need to pay for anything, the whole library belongs to you and everything is free.